Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Mega MNC in India. I am Anisha Jain. We are right here at the spectacular Conrad in Pune, which is the flagship luxury brand of Hilton in India. Hospitality is definitely booming in India, and with triggers like G20, World Cup and Miss World lineup, there's no dearth of demand. But is this demand going to be sustainable? And could India become a hub for tourism over the long term? We'll get you the perspective from the best voice in the industry, Mr. Navjit Ahluwalia, the country head and senior vice president at Hilton for India, joins us on the show today. Hi Navjit, thank you so much for having us here.
Hi Anisha, nice to have you with us.
It's a spectacular property. Thank you so much for helping us out. Take the pleasure of your hospitality right here.
No, it's a wonderful hotel. It's one of our nicest Conrads in India.
Definitely is. But you know what? Hilton has been in India for a little over a decade. Before we talk about the future and what lies ahead for Hilton, talk to us about the past. How's been the journey over the last 10 to 15 years and where are we at right now?
We are very excited about India. As you know, India is going to be the third largest lodging market in the world. Now, we've had a little bit of a late start in India. Although we came into India earlier, we had a couple of, maybe two starts that were not the way they were intended to be. So we did have a tie-up with Oberoi Hotels in the beginning, then we had a tie-up with DLF, then we had the global recession. So those starts didn't kind of pan out. But now we've been here in India for the little bit over a decade, and we're really committed to India. We have 24 hotels open, and we have 14 in the pipeline. But what's really exciting for us is the growth we see ahead. If I look ahead to 2030, we should be touching the 200 hotel mark.
Wow, 200 hotels by 2030, that's quite impressive. Let's talk about the present now. What's the demand situation right now? Because wherever we hear it's like a Goldilocks scenario for India, as you also pointed out. Is that really true on the ground as well?
So 2019 was one of the best years India had prior to COVID. Then COVID happened, and now in 2023, we've had a remarkable recovery. I think people did expect that India will be quick to recover, but when we compare India to other countries around the world, we were very fast to get off the track. And we are having the best year that Indian hospitality has seen so far.
Okay, that's good to hear, but break it down for us. Is it like the business travel which is, taking the lead? Is it leisure travel? Is it already above pre-COVID?
So I think there are three segments that are driving demand for the hospitality sector in India. Leisure is one, and leisure was obviously something that started to recover as soon as COVID started to go
Yeah, and there was this
back.
entire revenge travel phase, right?
Revenge
All of
travel,
us wanted to be outside our home.
Yes. Then I would say what really kept the industry alive and has really been a mainstay for us is the weddings business.
Okay.
It has now been coupled up with meetings and conferences, and that's really back because people hadn't met each other for over 2 years, and suddenly all companies and events, and this has been a real big stay for us. And then obviously the recovery of domestic business first, followed by international business.
But is business something which is doing rather well, or is it just around the plateauing range? And I ask you that because there's this entire clamor around recession, tech spends have been cut down, startups are seeing, going under, etc. What's the sentiment when it comes to business travel?
So to be honest with you, we are not seeing any signs in India of any lag in demand from domestic business. So domestic business is very strong, strongest it's ever been. Obviously from the tech sector and what we're seeing in the US, we are seeing not as much of a recovery as we had expected in the tech side of the business, in office parks, and international business from that side, from especially the US and Europe, hasn't been quick enough to recover like we had thought it might be.
Okay, so the business side of things are a little bit slower. But in terms of the leisure as well, what's been the demand trend? Are people going for more experiential travel? Is luxury and the higher end properties is what is seeing more demand? Or is it more of the affordable kinds which is seeing a lot of traction?
So I think it's both.
Okay.
Clearly during COVID, people who had financial strength and stability wanted to get out, and so we saw this emergence of very small ultra luxury boutique properties.
Right.
which are also experience-led. And I think we are living in the experiential age of travel, where people are really traveling to build memories.
Absolutely.
They want to collect experiences. So they really don't want to buy, the next handbag or a new pair of shoes.
You would rather spend on travel.
Spend on travel, and they want to experience a destination for what it is, and they really want a true sense of place. And so I think that's what we are seeing. We are seeing a lot of travel around that. So length of travel has increased.
Okay.
People are mixing business and leisure travel, and wherever they are experiencing what there is to see in that destination. Also, there's a lot of wellness, a lot of trend towards healthy lifestyles. So eating healthy, experiencing, whether it's yoga, meditation, nature walks, wildlife safaris. So that's I think the emerging trend that we are seeing across the world, not just in India.
That's interesting, but as has been the case across businesses, there were disruptions in the hotel industry as well, right? Whether it was Airbnb or the rent a bungalow kind of scenarios, is that something which is disrupting the market in big way, or do you believe that the pie is that big that everybody has a share to take?
I think they have all got their own space. I don't think we have been, and we've been saying this over many years because the question has always been asked, how is Airbnb, when it started to come up, how has it affected the hospitality business? Really, our pie has been growing constantly year on year. So we have not ever seen that taking business away from us. So I think it's increased the pie. So like, if I might take 5 or 6 vacations in a year, maybe 1 or 2 might be in an Airbnb. So that's a different kind of experience I'm looking for. When I'm traveling and staying in a hotel, it's a different experience. So I think they're fulfilling different needs for customers.
But as a consumer, tell me, we have seen the price of, room go skyrocket. It's becoming unaffordable even in India to travel. Is that going to be the trend?
I think I would take a contrary opinion to you in this case. I believe that room rates are really quite not that high in India. I think that given the cost of land, the cost of operating a hotel in India, our room rates are still among the lower as compared to other major cities. I mean, if I give you an example, if you go to any major metro in the world, New York, Paris, London, you're going to pay $800 to $1,000 for a luxury property. Yeah. Very few properties in India are commanding an 80,000 rupee tariff, whereas the cost of building that property is virtually the same. This is the first time in India that our occupancy, and I'm talking India-wide, has recovered to around 70%. And before the occupancy recovered to 70%, we had taken an ADR increase. So that means this time our upliftment in RevPAR is being led by rate as opposed to being led by occupancy. And you're seeing the same in travel, in airlines. Yeah, if you see airline rates, and I don't think they're ever going to come back to what we were used to pre-COVID. This has become the new normal. And I expect that people will be looking to pay what we think is fair value for hotel rooms as well.
As a consumer, you never think it's a fair value, right? You always want it to be a discounted price or something less as well. But give me a bit more details. You talked about occupancy coming back to 70%. Is that the case across the industry as well?
Yes.
In terms of the RevPAR, etc., average room rent, etc., how's that trending? How do you expect FY24 to pan out in terms of numbers?
So I think as I mentioned, we've seen occupancies in India for the first time heading into the 7. I'm talking pan-India across all segments, right? Across 70% occupancy level. ADR has been ramping up. For us, we've seen about a 30% increase in ADR over 2019 levels
So
in the first 2 quarters, yes. We expect this rate increase to now slightly not be at that same rate of growth, but stabilize at this kind of rate level that we have. So I think that, as I said before, our recovery is going to be ADR led. We are happy with slightly lower occupancies, but the RevPAR needs to be strong so that we have more bottom line and we are able to invest more in our properties and in the upkeep and maintenance, which had kind of suffered a little bit during COVID.
No, because hospitality is a tough industry, right?
Yes.
The costs on one side are huge, whether it is the cost of land, as you point out, cost of construction, etc. Then the maintenance continues to be quite high. What's the profitability in India at this point of time? Is it very lucrative to be in the hospitality business at this point of time, or it still continues to be very close to break even?
See, if you have to look at it from two different angles. One is how you look at it from an operating asset, and one as a financial asset. And there are two very different dynamics to this equation. Hotels in India generally are, from an operational point of view, are very good because they can generate anything from, I would say, 35% to 55% profit, depending upon the location, depending on the size of hotel. But it's not uncommon for a large, big box hotel to generate upwards of 50% GOP, which is a very healthy GOP when you compare it to the worldwide average that goes around. But on the other side is the financial angle of what it costs to build a hotel and how you're financing it. There's a mismatch in India because you are building a long-term asset with financing that is not as long-term as the life of the hotel. So if I have a hotel that has a life of 25, 30, 40 years, but I can get a mortgage only for 10, 15 years, there's a big mismatch. And that puts tremendous strain on a hotel in the first 5 to 7 years of its operation till it's able to lower its debt or become debt-free. And so if you as an owner or as an institution don't have the financial strength, and that's what happened during COVID, is a lot of people were not able to sustain this huge loss that occurred during a short period of time, which is why you have to be very careful how you financially structure and how much debt you can take on a hotel when you're building something like this.
Welcome back. Well, we are still in conversation with Navjit of Hilton India to try and understand how the trends in hospitality are shaping up in India. So let's try and do just that. Navjit, in terms of the outlook going forward, let's talk about the future now. What does it mean for Hilton India at this point of time? What's the growth target like for the next 3 to 5 years? Which areas are you coming out with more properties in?
So, Anisha, like I said, we are really excited about our growth in India because not just for us, we believe this is the golden age of travel. And this is not India's decade, but it's India's century.
Wow.
Because we are going to see massive growth in all industries because as our GDP is going to increase and we are so undersupplied, and as affordability in India increases, it's not just the luxury sector or full service hotels or economy. We are going to see broad-based demand growth and we are going to see supply increasing in all these sectors. Now luckily we are a multi-brand company. We have only deployed so far 5 brands in India. We've just introduced our luxury brand World of Astoria, which is coming to Jaipur. We feel, and that's really a brand that's centered around celebration. So we feel with the Indian wedding market being strong, Jaipur is really the ideal location to launch that. And so we're really excited about that. But we see a lot more in that space. And we see a lot more in hotels like Conrad Pune, which are a blend of business and pleasure. And we also see the largest growth in our segment, which is the Hilton Garden Inn. And we will also be bringing our economy brand, which is a little bit lower than Hilton Garden Inn, to the market, Hampton. So I think over time, if I look 20, 30 years, it'll be like a pyramid with the largest number of hotels being Hilton Garden Inn and Hampton, then Doubletree and Hilton, and then Conrad, and then obviously a few World of Astorias at the top.
But Hilton is not alone in trying to tap into this opportunity and this market, which is India at this point of time. There are others as well that are coming up with a lot of properties. Do you believe there could be a case of stiff competition, oversupply in the system at all?
I think competition is good because it brings out the best in all of us. And I think the markets, as I said, broad enough. We have existed in bigger markets like the US and in Europe, where all of us do well, all of us grow. And I think the important thing will be that as the world gets global and people want to experience local, you still want big brand hotels because they have the ability to invest in the technology, which is very important. We also have broad-based loyalty memberships like Hilton Honors that drives demand to our hotels. And these are our competitive advantages. So I think broadly where everybody will grow, but we certainly will have an edge because what we bring to the table.
And you just mentioned you have 24 properties as of now. You're planning to get to a larger number in the future. 10, 15 are already in the pipeline. Which are the cities or geographies that they're coming up in? Is it the tier 2, tier 3 cities, or are you looking at maybe deepening your presence in metros? What's the strategy?
Again, the answer is both.
Okay.
We just signed 4 new hotels in the first 2 quarters. So we signed in Nagpur, we signed in Guwahati, the Waldorf in Jaipur, another DoubleTree in Jaipur. So we are signing multiple hotels in the cities we already exist in because we still have a long way to cover. I mean, if you take Mumbai, for example, how many Hilton hotels can be in Mumbai? I think if you look at a city like New York, you know, within a 25-kilometer radius, we probably have over 100 hotels. Wow. So we are still very much at the very nascent stages. And we could have multiple brands and multiple locations within the same city. And we are still dipping into, India has about 53 cities with a population of over 1 million people. Now, we still have tapped only a very few of those cities.
Sure. No, I'm waiting to buy to, kind of experience all those amazing properties that you come up with. But for now, I've heard in Conrad, Pune, there's an amazing poolside as well. Show me that.
Absolutely. Let's head there.
Navjit, you have been talking about how India is the place to be, how the century belongs to India. But talk to us about the policy action. What is that is driving this amount of confidence? Is it the fact that the infrastructure is coming up quite well in terms of the airport, transport, etc.? What's driving your confidence?
So I think when we speak about the hotel industry is obviously only a small factor of the Indian economy, right? So if India's place in the world is in its rightful place and everything else around it. So I would think that there are 3 or 4 things that have dramatically changed in the last, I would say, during COVID and just before COVID. So obviously before COVID we had this push towards infrastructure, the digital payments, UPI, and our entire startup space has dramatically kind of elevated India. And obviously what's happening on the geopolitical scene as well as impacting and helping India between, people want to de-risk themselves and want to establish another area where they can have growth. So India emerges as a natural choice. So I think we are being benefited from multiple spaces and things that are happening around the world. And we've always had this big demographic dividend, but people always doubted whether we'll ever reap the benefits of that dividend. And I think that with what's happened on infrastructure and the financial Aadhaar, UPI and all that stuff, I think that has kind of brought it all together. And suddenly people have this belief that yes, we can dramatically alter and become a much more stronger economy and become 5th largest economy, 3rd largest lodging market. And therefore there's this tremendous interest from not just the hotel majors, but every major industry around the world is concentrating and focusing on India.
Well, that certainly is the case in all my conversations, that China +1, Europe +1 strategy is something that comes out quite strongly. But one thing which is a bit difficult for the hospitality industry, yet very, very critical and important, is sustainability, right? And hospitality is at that edge wherein consumers want something else, but to manage that in the right amount and appropriate amount of resources is very difficult. How are you matching that?
So I think long before sustainability and ESG became a buzzword in industry, we've at Hilton had a travel with purpose. So we believe that wherever we go in the world, and this starts from Conrad Hilton's time, he believed himself to be an ambassador for travel. He believed that travel can bring the world together. And that's how, Hilton hotels were set up, during the Cold War in major cities around the world as a place where people came together and kind of built friendships, and diplomacy kind of took over. And I think as an extension of that, we believe that travel with purpose is looking at all the different impact that we have around, whether it's communities, whether it's with guests, whether it's with team members, whether it's with owners. So we try to bring that all together, and I think that's kind of become what's actually important to do business today. So people are really concerned about the carbon footprint that they are having. They are concerned about, as we spoke about, the experiences that they are. It's local. It's not just something that
that's artificially
put. They are concerned about what is happening with our water resources. It's the most important resource around the world. What are we doing with plastics, right? What we have committed ourselves to use local seafood and reduce our carbon footprint. So all our hotels around the world have been focused on this for years. Obviously, it's become a much larger area for focus around the world for other people as well now.
No, okay, so travel with purpose was the, let's say, mantra of Conrad Hilton. What's your own leadership mantra?
I believe that you need to be passionate about whatever you do. And then if you're passionate and enjoy what you do, you're really, that's something that you can focus on 24 hours a day. It's not work anymore.
Is that how you work 24 hours a day?
No, I don't, because it's never work for me. I find that I don't separate my personal life from my work life. I enjoy working, and it kind of is a mix always. And I feel that my mantra is always if you can encourage and find the best people. I think people, team members, that's the real important thing. If you surround yourself with people smarter than you, then you're not really working, and if you can provide that kind of atmosphere, the work culture, that people are encouraged, that they feel that they bring their whole selves to work and they are rewarded for what they do, then it all becomes nice, warm, fuzzy. That's what we all want, right?
It's like a family at work.
A family at work, or at least they're finding their own purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose might be different from somebody else's purpose. But as long as each one of us as individuals can find whatever our purpose is in this common purpose of the organization, then I think that's the kind of work culture. And that's why Hilton's regarded one of the best places to work. We win awards across the world, even in India. We're in the top 10 companies to work for. And that doesn't come just like
by
that,
the label of it.
by the label, right? You have to, we are very focused on team members, very focused on what people want, and allow them that flexibility, allow them to become what they really want to be.
You yourself have been a career hotelier, right? For all your career, you have been in hotels itself. Of course, you've been leading Hilton for the last 5 years. But talk to us about, in terms of if somebody is starting out their career, what would be your message to them in terms of, let's say, the hotel hospitality industry and otherwise as well? What's the career advice that you will give to someone who's starting out?
I think that you have to be open to learn. In many times in my career, I have taken a step back to start something different. And I think at the end, it has all come together nicely for me. But I was always somebody who went outside my comfort zone. And I think that's important, that unless you put yourself in an area that you're not comfortable with, you're not going to learn. And I think as long as you're open to doing that and being open to even stepping back sometimes to step ahead.
Unlearn and relearn and learn something new.
Yes.
Fair. But let me put you on a spot and try and ask you, if not Hilton in India, which is the property you would want to go to? Who's the second best?
I would do something that would be very small, very experiential.
A boutique niche hotel
boutique,
of sorts.
Like in nature. I've always said, glamping or being in nature is my second love.
Wow, being in nature is a second love. So where is your next holiday then? I want to know that.
I don't know. I like to. I like
Wherever
to
life takes
explore.
you.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Let's see wherever life takes Conrad as well as Hilton at this point of time, because it looks like it's in a Goldilocks scenario of sorts. Lots lined up when it comes to the future as well. So on that optimistic note, Navjit, thank you so much for making time and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.